Hope this is less abrasive on the ears than the last one. That was pretty harsh when I re-listened to that. Yeah. If only I would have known when I was writing this stuff and recording it that I'd be using it someday for just intro music. I still think it's not bad, but hey, I'm kind of biased. I just got a groove on this a minute. I really do like my own material. I'm sorry if that makes me a narcissist. I never really wrote it for anyone else anyway. It was always just for me. So if you like it, great. I love it.
Sorry as I want to be, I cannot find the words. So sorry to see the folly in me, the calling of creed, forsaken and greedy. Shine on the shadow, this darkened pit I call my soul. Come find me and heal me. Only you
Can you feel it? Can you feel it?
see my dreams.
All right. I suppose that's enough self-aggrandizement for the moment. Well, at least that form of self-aggrandizement. Today's broadcast is brought to you by our sponsors, I Don't Give a Shit, and our other one that My Life is Ruined Anyway, so why do I care? So it's wonderful when you the less you have to lose, I find the more fun you can have. I'm not worried about being deplatformed or anything. I don't think I'll ever get to the point where enough people actually care what I have to say. So this is a convenient format for me to reach, a few people. I do it for me, just to express myself, just to just get it out there, and I find that you really figure out what you really think, what you really believe, if you have to lay it out for someone else and defend it and talk about it, especially if you do it often on a daily basis. Getting caught up in my headphone cable. There we go. So I move away from the mic to breathe. Oh yeah, throwback to the golden age of the interwebs. So the totalitarians, they're making their move. It's really happening. Google is beta testing what will be eventually unleashed upon the American populace, albeit under a very different auspices. But they're involved in China's social credit system. I'm bending over at an awkward angle. Okay. They're involved in China's social credit thing, and they're also involved in crafting algorithms so that they're meeting the expectations of the government of China for what they do and don't want their people to see and hear, and getting all up into their apps and trying to make sure that they're not sharing any illegal information and stuff like that. It's like, you guys don't think that this is the beta run for the big one, America? I mean, if you tuned into my last live stream, it's pretty evident that creating a reality isn't that hard if you have enough resources. It really isn't. You just got to care. You just got to be invested and be kind of evil, not care about selling your soul to Satan and all of that stuff. And bam, you can manipulate an entire populace by controlling the flow of information. And they're testing, like any good hacker, they're testing for vulnerabilities in our present system right now by banning people that people love to hate, that it can be very easily painted as villains. They can be very easily dismissed as people who just don't matter, but they're hateful and mean. And so, it's real easy to have antipathy towards Alex Jones, especially when the majority of what people know about Alex Jones is actually a lie. It's really sad, but I've been listening to Alex Jones for going on 20 years now, maybe more, and I've been just as taken aback by a lot of his crazier things. We're not going to talk about the reptilian conspiracy today, but the Sandy Hook thing was a total hatchet job. He never said it didn't happen. He never once said that. He said he had doubts that things were fishy, that he bets that there were probably crisis actors, or he doesn't know. There was a lot of doubt involved and a refusal to accept the official story. And so, because of that, they were able to twist that into, oh, he denies that Sandy Hook happened, and oh, look at the pain and suffering he's causing the bereaved parents, and he's even sending people to their doorsteps to harass them, and none of which is true. None of it was true. None. Not even a little bit. He actually went on the air and said, don't do this. Don't do bullshit things like this in my name, for crying out loud. Hold on, I'm just going to check the time. Okay. I got to wrap this up within like 10, 15 minutes. And then you got Gavin McInnes. I mean, almost everybody on my friends list hates Gavin McInnes. I'm one of the very few that kind of gets the guy. I don't find him particularly offensive. It's 90% tongue in cheek, the really gross stuff that he says. And I think that what he's doing is pretty important for everybody everywhere, because he's one of those guys who's not creating a canned product. And look, all you hipsters out there, I understand it's calculated. I understand that the man is not half as, organic and natural as it seems. It's not like he just says what he thinks. Yeah, he does calculate. Okay, he has a calculated image, but it's his image. It's how he wants to present himself. It's not trying to cater to any demographic, any segment of the population, or sponsors or anything like that. And that is valuable for him to demonstrate that you can do that and still have an audience, still be able to do something in that business. That's pretty important. And what the powers that be are showing him is, no, you can't. You need to toe our line. And this is horribly dangerous. This is terrifying for anyone who believes in the primacy of free speech in a free society. You cannot have a free society without free speech. And if the most objectionable among us aren't allowed to speak, then you don't have free speech. It's just that simple. If the First Amendment was protecting speech that everyone wanted to hear, then you wouldn't need to codify it in the law. I don't understand how this is something that is hard to understand, but sorry, just making sure no one was yelling up at me. So yeah, in case anyone's wondering yet, the baby's in bed, the other baby's chilling with their dolly dolls, and Gavin's outside playing in the streets, tempting traffic to run him over. I'm just kidding. Oh, that's the funny thing. My son's name happens to be Gavin, so I can see where there'd be a little bit of confusion there. Nothing like the infamous Mr. McInnes. But let me see who else has been deplatformed recently. Milo Yiannopoulos, again, he made a career out of making people hate him. An intentional agent provocateur. Very, very transparent about that, funny enough. He was a lampoon of his own self. A gay Jew who's married to a black guy that everyone's saying is an alt-right, racist, homophobic Nazi. Come on. I can't say that without laughing. He's a gay Jew homophobic Nazi. And so, who's going to bitch when they deplatform him? Well, he had a lot of people. If he hadn't made his comments, seemingly advocating for a form of pederasty, then I think that, maybe he might have been able to spark some kind of fire. But yeah, that pretty much put him right in that corner. And so who knows who's next? I know that Jordan Peterson is bowing big time to the powers that be. He's totally choking, which is a real disappointment for me. I do believe in the man's message. I do believe in the difference he's made in America's consciousness right now. Unfortunately, the man himself is flawed, as all men are, and I think that he has rode this wave long enough to have a sufficient fear of the inevitable crash of the wave, and so he's trying to solidify a position for himself high enough on the hierarchy that he won't be bored. But I think that he could be a very powerful voice in the fight for freedom of speech, because that's pretty much what gave him his celebrity status in the first place. And I knew that it was going downhill when he dissociated himself from Faith Goldie, and she didn't do anything wrong. Okay, she went on the Right Side Broadcasting Network and didn't scream and yell at them and all that stuff. She maintained her objectivity. She didn't affirm the thing. In fact, afterwards, she went on and said, make sure you understand. It's not that I agree with these guys, but obviously we have common ground. If you're human beings, you have a common ground somewhere, no matter how divergent your ideology may be. We all have some common ground, and that was what she was attempting to find. And no, gotta dissociate. I mean, and the fact that this was on the freedom of speech tour is just irony heaped upon irony heaped upon irony. And I'm not gonna sit here and rag on Jordan Peterson, because the man has made a huge difference in so many people's lives that I don't want to illegitimize that by highlighting his flaws rather than his positive accomplishments, because I think that his positive accomplishments beyond outshine anything that he could screw up at this point. So, every good fighter knows that once you get that title, you don't want to defend it too many times before you hang up the gloves. Better to go out king rather than get dragged into the streets by the mob, right? So, I don't know what's going to happen now. I don't know where we're going to go from here, because Jack Dorsey, the CEO of Twitter, he's committed himself to this path. When Patreon banned Sargon of Akkad, I think that was a huge wake-up call to anyone who doubted that it was happening, that they were making their move, that they're going for broke this time. And I could provide an in-depth analysis as to why they chose this moment, why they're getting so extreme. I'll give you a hint. It would not be happening if Hillary had been elected. I'm not saying that I wish Hillary would have been elected. All I'm saying is there wouldn't be this sense of urgency. There wouldn't be this desperation, because they're playing with the First Amendment here, and it's the first for a reason. It's the most sacred element of American society, is the freedom of expression, the freedom of speech, the freedom to think what you want to think and say what you want to say, print what you want to print, criticize who you want to criticize in whatever language you choose. This is perhaps the most sacred American ideal, as it very much overlaps with the Judeo-Christian heritage inherent to American history. The primacy of the logos, the message, the word, the understanding, the reality, really. Scary times. And hopefully there will emerge competitors. It's kind of hard when the top tier financial institutions are in collusion with one another. I think it was Milo Yiannopoulos that Patreon was threatened by Visa if they didn't drop Milo. I think that's who it was. It was one of them. I can't remember for certain, but I'm pretty sure. And it may have been because was it PayPal? I think it might have been PayPal. Anyway, I'm not voting. You get what I'm saying. It was a top tier financial institution threatening a payment agency if they maintained a relationship with this client, which I just, it used to be that financial affairs were off the table. I mean, sanctioning is the stuff that we do to foreign dictators and shit. And instead we're like helping them by outsourcing our Silicon Valley talent to program their algorithms to help them better control their populace. I mean, are you friggin' kidding me here? And where's all the outrage for this stuff? The only one I saw really sticking it to the Google CEO as he was walking through the halls of Congress, of all people, was Alex Jones. And there just so happened to be a Uyghur from China. The Uyghurs are being ushered into concentration camps by the thousands. They're Chinese Muslims, and they're going to re-education camps. I mean, this is seriously World War II stuff right here, and it's happening. We know it. We see it on satellite imagery. The Uyghurs that get out are testifying to this. Nobody cares. Nobody's talking about it. No one's doing anything about it. Our tech companies are in league with the people who are doing this. Nobody's talking about Yemen. How come nobody's talking about Yemen? One of the greatest humanitarian crises of my lifetime, and nobody's talking about how we're fighting Saudi Arabia's war for them, which themselves is only a proxy war, for crying out loud. They're trying to prop up the defunct Yemenis regime that has already been overrun by IS, their Islamic State, and it's like they've lost. So right now, it's just a war of punishment. It is just never-ending punishment. And you know who's being punished the most? The dying civilians. And I get so frustrated when it comes to things like this, because the solutions are very easy. Cut the money off. Why did we ever even why did we ever even start to do business with China in the first place? They are the ones who defined the very concept of the sweatshop, slave wages, all of that stuff. For crying out loud, the rest of the civilized world left that behind at the tail end of the 1800s. Well, some of us into the 1900s. I don't know. We weren't perfect, but point being is that's a throwback to a bygone era that thankfully is dead and gone, except for in communist China. I I don't believe that we should do business with any nation with the kind of human rights record that China does. We should not profit off of human rights violations. Why is this such a revolutionary concept? We should not be profiting off of anything that is paid for by someone else's unwilling suffering. Their non-consensual participation in a machine that grinds them into dust. But we want our cheap prices at Walmart, right? Well, here's a sick, sad little element of truth to that whole mindset. If we would stop doing businesses that have the kind of labor that China does, that don't have labor laws like we do, that don't have basic human rights like we do, if we would only do business with nations that agree with us on how to treat labor, then the prices, not only would they be just as cheap, they would probably be even cheaper, because that's just the law of supply and demand. I think the other mindset is predicated on a variation of the broken window fallacy, but I'm not going to take the time to develop that. All I'm saying is, we now more than ever, we need to be talking about these things just like this, and they're silencing the people who are. They're telling them, no, stay in your lane, shut up, talk about video games, or talk about trends, or talk about sex, or talk about whatever mindless, meaningless thing you want to talk about. But whatever you do, don't get in the way of this global steamroller that is just, it's basically God. And it's disgusting. It is a sick, fallen God. It is an evil demon. It is every dystopian nightmare ever conjured up by any sci-fi writer. And so I just want to close with saying that I do believe very deeply in liberty. I can't call myself a libertarian because I'm far too pragmatic for that. I understand that we have not quite... We haven't evolved yet. Okay, we haven't gotten to that point of evolution where we can actually work in good faith with one another. You know, force is necessary at times, unfortunately. If you have a totally libertarian society, all it'll take is the Mad Max warlords to move in, and before they start raising hell and whatnot. But what I can say is that I do believe that liberty begins with the free exchange of ideas, and the superiority of the ideas themselves and how they appeal to the human heart are going to be the biggest selling point. They're going to be that which brings it all together. That's basic. I mean, if we could understand that the utopia promised by by the whatchamacallits there, I hate it when I have those stupid blank moments. The Bolsheviks, sorry. If we could capture that same spirit of the Bolsheviks, only the spirit of liberty, they like to take these good words and repackage them to mean something entirely different. That this social justice would give us liberty. No, I think letting loose the fetters that we put upon our fellow man is what will give us liberty. And when we learn to negotiate our place in life rather than demand it, when we learn to actually cooperate rather than strong arm one another, and it's a slow, steady process, and the free exchange of information and ideas, the freedom to engage at will, to be heard, to have equal access to the platforms that everyone else has access to. This is so essential. It's a no-brainer for me. So I'll just say in closing that I do think that we have a good future ahead of us if we can let go of our stupid envy, let go of our need for all the stupid stuff that we cling to, and actually roll up our sleeves, get to the good work of convincing our fellow man that peace is better, nonviolence is better, and we can have it all. We can have it all if we just stop trying to game each other. So I will leave it at that. And hi, Cup of Cloud. I'm sorry you missed most of it, but you can go back, rewind it. I think you can do that even while I'm still broadcasting. So, having said that, I will end it, and I will see y'all on the flip side. I got to come up with a new tagline. That one's been used. I will see you all when the sun shines again upon this heart of Christ. I don't know. I'll work on it. Peace.
Only you can make me whole. I see her in my dreams. Only you can mend these wounds. So shine on, you hear me. I need you, don't leave me.